At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo of the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast, whether it be on Facebook or Patreon. Patrons of the podcast, rather. Thank you so much. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially all of you that are here right now, listening, sharing, supporting, all of it. Thank you so much. I am fresh back from Bandera, Texas, and it was an excellent time. I was out there. This is my third time now as the closer for leadership summit or retreat rather that is put on by the 360-degree dispatcher that's run by Joe Serio. And as always, an epic time. If you've not had a chance to go out there, please do so. But when it comes up, make sure to do so fast, because those slots, they ended up selling out like that. So make sure to check that out. Again, that is from the 360-degree dispatcher, Joe Serio there, and it's all done out at the Mayan Ranch. And it's an epic time. It's a unique experience, and one that is hard to put into words unless you have been there. But again, this was the third time that I've been out there for the closing, and I close out with Imagine Listening, but also sharing a little bit about myself as well before we jump into Imagine Listening and open mic. So make sure to check that out. Also, we've got speaking engagements coming up next week. I'll be in Texas. Actually, when this comes out, I will be in Texas already. I will have done my keynote as well as Imagine Listening twice, and I will be in the vendor hall recording episodes with attendees, but also probably going to do a live open mic session as well. So I hope to see you all there. All right, got that out of the way, and I am excited for my guest. We were just laughing just a moment ago and talking about a bunch of different things, and I am super excited to have her on. So her name is Brooke, and she is a communications officer with Saluda County Sheriff's Office out of South Carolina. Yo.
Hello.
What is going on? How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It is actually, so it's 44 degrees over here. It was a lot warmer in Texas, I'll say that.
Yeah. It's stormy and humid to the point of no breathing outside.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It just hits you in the face and you get...
Oh, I hate that. Especially, so over here in Indiana, that's mostly how it is, like wintertime. Like there are times when you go outside and it catches your breath, but it feels like it crystallizes your insides.
Down here, our insides melt. Not
Oh,
good.
man. I don't know what would be worse. They both sound pretty bad, so
It does.
yeah, yeah, it is not good at all, but I am again, like I said a couple times already, I'm super excited to have you on and learn more about you, so let's jump right in. Let's get into that DeLorean and go back in time to find out how you got started in public safety to begin with. Do you come from, like, a public safety family, or are you like many of us who just, bam, jumped right into it and like, "Here I am?"
No, I come from a public safety family.
Mhm.
My dad was a firefighter, and then he went to the police academy, and he was there for like 40 something years. So it's been a long ride.
Oh, man. So,
Yep.
okay, so all of that time and you for your experience, everything that you've done so far, you're going on about 13 years, right? Something like that,
Mhm.
pretty close? So
Yep.
so you've grown up with it. What do you remember as a kid? Do you remember seeing him, like, run off to, do his job, or do you remember hearing, like, radio traffic? Like, what all do you remember growing up?
Yeah, so I had a fire scanner and a radio beside my crib in our house. So literally from day one, I was in the mix of it. Um, I knew all the 10 codes by like the age of 11.
Oh, man.
And yeah, it was something because I was like, I want to know what they're saying. Like, I don't understand all this 10-9, 10-2, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Right.
well, what does that mean? And he was like, just learn them.
That is funny. So it's you say what you said in the beginning, and all I can see you. Like, I can see you in a crib, like, with, as a baby with the scanner right next to you, and then growing up and like 10-4. Oh, she said her first words, 10-4.
Yeah, the fire turns to drop. I was like, oh, there's my lullaby. Not a
That
normal child.
that's funny. So do you okay, I have to ask now. Do you is there anything public safety wise that growing up with and so the scanner thing, like, is that a form of, like, ambiance or anything that you're able to go to sleep to?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
I
shit.
can sleep. It's a good thing I'm not a fireman because I can sleep right through those tones like
Oh,
it's nothing.
man. That is craziness because, there's a lot of things that happen to us or that we experience growing up that end up sticking with us throughout, adulthood and everything else. And sometimes you kind of sit there and think, oh, man, where did that come from? Why do I do that? And then to think back, and of course, this is just me speculating, just playing the guessing game here and stuff. But you going through and realizing something and thinking, "That's what it was. It was because that scanner was next to me probably as a kid."
Yeah.
Oh, man, that is funny. So you've got all of this experience and everything. So then is that really what kinda drove you, to pushed you towards public safety as well? Did you kinda jump right in,
Yeah.
after high school, or how did that work?
Yeah. So, um, I started off with Lexington County, which is the department that my dad worked at.
Mhm.
He was like, you already know how they operate. So why don't you just apply for a job? So I graduated high school 2010 and partied that summer. And then October of 2010, I started working.
Damn, you jumped right in.
Yep.
I love how you put that, you graduated, partied it up for the summertime because we
Because
all
I knew my
know.
life was about to be over.
Right, yes, that shit is gone. Not completely, of course, there are times and then, those that you work with and everything else, but to have that complete, summer to just do what you wanna do and then go into this life-changing
Oh, yeah.
employment, calling, whichever that you wanna call it. Um, yeah, that's a good thing, and
Yeah.
so, I remember when I was done dispatching, the day after my last day in dispatch, I called my new boss because I had left dispatch to go to the private side of 911 to work, as an industry partner, And I spoke to the VP of the company, and I said, "What do you guys need me to do today?" Now, mind you, I had worked my last shift ever in dispatch, true blue to dispatch, ended up being an overtime shift. I worked 16-hour
Oh my
shift.
god.
Yes.
Oof. No,
It
thank
was
you.
it was a 16-hour shift, and I'm half awake calling my new boss, and I said, "So, what do you guys need me to do?" And he goes, "I'm pretty sure that you have not had a lot of time off working in dispatch." And I was like, "No, I haven't." And he goes, "I want you to take the next 2 weeks." He goes, "You're still gonna get paid. You're still gonna be getting prepared for what you're gonna do with us, but take those next 2 weeks to yourself and your family
Oh.
because once we get started, it's gonna be like dispatch. It's gonna be nonstop." And I thought, "No, it's not. It has been nonstop." Since
Damn.
2013, it's been nonstop. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Just like dispatch from 2001 all the way up to 2013. Yeah, it's been nuts. So I can
Oh my god.
see how you would want to take that time for you because it's a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, so October, you end up jumping in.
Yeah.
And what is that like for you in the beginning? Like, I mean, you've got all of um this experience already, right? But did you do any sit-alongs in dispatch or did you just jump right in?
Um, I did a few because one of my good friends worked there. So I was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna come sit with you and, listen, see how much the difference really is between listening to it on one side and on the other."
Mhm.
So she was like, "Okay." So I came down there and I listened for like the first 10 minutes. I was like, "Yeah, I'm sucked in. Let's go."
Damn, that's all it took. It was 10
Yeah.
minutes. I love that. So, there was actually stuff that was going on then, huh? Because
Oh
I it
yeah.
and I asked because I remember being in dispatch, and we would have people come in too to sit along and see if it was something that they really wanted to pursue, and they would be in there for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and there would be nothing going on, and they would say, "Hell yeah, I wanna do this. This seems like nothing." And we're like, "No, this
No.
is not a true depiction of the hell that happens in here sometimes."
Yes.
And, every so often, we would have someone come in for a sit along, and it would just be balls to the wall, just busy, 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 and their eyes are like the whole time, and we're like, "You're not
Yeah.
coming back, are you?" And they would go, "No, I want
No.
this, like, this is
No.
good." So, I imagine that being you, like, just being like, it's already in your blood.
Yeah, and I mean, it was Lexington at that time was really busy. They were still kinda growing,
Mhm.
so it was, constant calls coming in. I don't think we ever really had much time that the phone wasn't ringing, but,
Oh, man.
it was one of those steady ones where you were like, "Oh, thank God that 12 hours is over." That was hell.
Right. Well, and that can go 2 different ways, right? One of 2 ways, and that's either you're working like crazy, the phones are ringing off the hook, and you look up and, yeah, you're thinking, "Oh, damn, that 12 hours is over already."
Yeah.
Or the same exact scenario, but you look up at the clock and you're like, "It's only been 15 minutes? What?"
Yes. Oh my god, there is, like, no happy medium. It's, like,
Right.
either snail's pace or you're just hammered.
Right, exactly. It's the same it's, almost the exact same thing with the temperature in the room, right? It's either, "Holy hell, it's hot in here," or it's ice cold.
Yes, it was 75 in our center last night.
Oh my
We
god.
were all looked at each other and we were like, "Well, no wonder we're all sweating." Like,
Right.
what the hell?
Sweating, cabin fever, probably getting annoyed with each other, and you're like, "Why are we annoyed with each other?" "Oh, because it's
Why are
hot as
we
fuck
doing
in
this?
here." Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh my god. So, okay, so you walk in and 10 minutes in, you're like, "Yes, this is what I wanna do." But was there any moment when you walked in where you felt overwhelmed at all? And the only reason I ask is because, like, on my first day when I walked in, not when I very first started out, but when I moved from Florida back home to Southwest Michigan, I started working for Essential Dispatch, and there were
Mm.
more consoles. The call volume was a lot higher, but I remember walking in and seeing people with all of these monitors, they're talking on the phone, talking on the radio, typing, yelling over, eating food at the same time, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Fuck, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this." Was there ever a moment like that for you, or were you just already, "Let's do this"?
Uh, I was just kinda, ready. I had obviously been down in dispatch before
Mhm.
with my dad when I was a kid and stuff, and I was like, "Dang, this is actually pretty cool." So, I think from, like, a young age, I knew that that was not getting out of public safety, even if I wanted to.
Dang, that is awesome. So, you and a few other people that I've spoken to are a rare breed who have been like, right away, "This is what I wanna do," I've even had a few people who have said, "I always wanted to be a 911 dispatcher." I don't either because of family that was in it or that's just what they wanted to do, so, yeah, you're in that
Yeah.
small group of people that
Or
I've
we just
spoken
have
to.
some fucked up mindset.
Right? Yeah, you've got some death wish.
Yeah, "Oh, hearing these people's stories, my life really isn't that crazy. I'm normal compared to them."
Oh, man, there are moments in dispatch where you get phone calls and you think, "Is this real life? Like, is this really
Yeah,
happening right now?" And sure as shit, it is. So
yeah.
so you end up going in. What was the process like in the beginning then? So you did the sit along and then was it, the interview process? Was there any testing? How did that work out?
Um, I went in for my interview.
Mhm.
I don't really remember if there was any testing or not. I know I might have had to go to, like, a psych eval or something just so they can make sure I wasn't batshit crazy.
Right.
Which, I mean, look what job I applied for. No, you gotta be.
Right. Just a
Um,
little bit.
yeah, there's gonna be something wrong.
Yeah.
So then it was maybe like 3 months before I got hired, like, officially got my start date. Like I said, I started in October and, thankfully, I knew some of the people down there. I
Mhm.
knew, like, a bunch of the officers and, EMS and fire that was on the other side too. So that made it really comfortable to, like, transition from an 18-year-old party girl to an 18-year-old dis like, dispatcher.
Yeah,
It's a
party
big
girl
old
to
job. Yeah.
service.
Party girl to big girl job.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome though, because, there's a lot of people who end up getting into this job and they don't know anybody. And,
Yeah.
there's that feeling of being alone. And like for myself, it was kind of like that in a way where when I got into the central dispatch part of it, I mean, when I first started out, it was a small police department. I didn't know anybody there either. But for whatever reason, it was a bit different at the central dispatch, and I think it was more so because they were not as welcoming, but only because that's the way they had always done it,
Yeah.
which I fucking hate that phrase, "This is the way it's always been done."
Yeah.
Well, it's time to change, right? So,
Well, it's not
yeah,
like
it's
that
it's it's
anymore.
yeah, it's definitely not like that anymore, but when I got in there, you were with your trainer, and that was it.
That was
Nobody
all.
nobody would talk to you or anything, which sucked for me because, I remember in the interview process, I was told, "We're like a family, we teamwork, we work together, this and that." But it was completely different, and I ended up going kind of through some shit, and also
Yeah.
I almost quit
I'm
because
pretty
of
sure
that.
that that whole, "Oh, we're like a family here," I'm pretty sure that's just something to reel you in, you
Well,
know?
yeah,
Makes you
it
feel like, "Yeah, okay, this'll be good. I'm not gonna be alone." And then you get
right.
there and they're like, "We hate you."
And I think, of course, that's the older mindset, that old guard that was there before, because now things are completely different in a lot of places where it's welcome to the team, welcome to the family, this and this and this. And the center that I worked at before, the last center that I worked at, it's completely different now. I'm pretty sure after me is when everything changed because I actually spoke up and
Yeah.
said, "Shit needs to change because this is not working." And I actually had a really good friend there that I grew up with. Her and I, were childhood friends, went to high school together, and she graduated, a year before me, and I remember going up to her and saying, what the fuck is going on? Like, even you are not talking to me, and we've known each other since we were kids. I said, I
Yeah.
don't think I'm gonna be able to get through this because this kind of sucks. And she goes, no, 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 no. It's just the way they do it right now. Once you get to the shadow phase, then we all work as a team. And I said, dude, shouldn't we be kind of doing this already?
I feel like
Like,
that should be, like, the number one thing, not
right.
after the shadow.
Exactly. And I had said to her, I said, Don't you want me to stay? Like, isn't that, the main thing? And she goes, yes. And so we had this huge conversation, not just her and I, but myself and like the deputy director, and things ended up changing. The way and my friend who I was talking about, she's the training coordinator now, and she changed everything.
Well,
So
that's good.
the culture completely changed, and I'm not saying it was all because of me, but there was a
You
part
had
of
a
it
big part.
that yeah, I had a big part in it, but,
I was like the 90%. They were like the
yeah, yeah, just a little bit,
just a
but,
little bit.
things are completely different there, and I love hearing about different centers who are welcoming, and they bring their people in because, man, everybody's been short-staffed for years,
Yeah.
and, it feels like just communication, which is
Yep.
something we're really good at, but when we try to talk to each other,
We
not the
really
best all
suck
the
at it.
time. Yes, but things
And
are changing.
that's like at the center I'm at now, it really she, you know, was like, "We're a family here." I was like, "Oh god." I thought to myself, "Here we go."
Yeah.
Well, they really are. Like, the administrative director, she will come sit at a console if, somebody can't come in. I was like, "Wow, maybe you weren't lying. This is the change."
I love that. Yes. There's a lot of places out there that, have definitely changed that culture and that mindset, and they're keeping people and
Mhm.
actually having other people come in, and, because they want to experience the same thing, and I
Yeah.
think that's one of the best things about right now, especially the resources, conversations like you and I are having, just all of this. We're learning from each other, and we're moving forward. Like, there's
Yes.
progression, and there's also evolution, and I that's what I love about this profession as well. So, you get your start, you're going in, you've got this experience and everything. What about your training? Was there anything in the training that surprised you, or was it pretty much how you thought it was going to be?
Mm, it was pretty much how I thought it was gonna be.
Mhm,
Um, it was a lot longer than I had really anticipated. I think it was like 6 months to a year.
mhm.
Um, but, I think if they saw, like, you catch on pretty easy and, you can move through things pretty fluidly, like, your training kind of was sped up a little bit. So, I don't really remember how long. I think it was about 6 months, but
See, and mine was probably about 3.5 months, but only because, like you said, if you've got that experience or if you're catching on a lot faster, your training gets
mhm.
accelerated a little bit. So when I went to the central dispatch, I had already had like 3.5, 4 years under my belt. So mine wasn't as long, but I'll tell you this shit. A little bit before I went on my own, there was a call that I took. It was a domestic call. And this old CAD system that we had, like, you had to put in like the incident type, ORI, township code. Like, you needed to make sure all this was in before you could even get to typing the narrative. And for whatever reason, I could not get the stupid thing to go in. And I remember cupping the phone and looking at my trainer and saying, "You're gonna have to take over this." And she goes, "No."
Yep.
She yeah, she's it basically was putting her foot up my ass and was like, "No, you got
You're
this."
you're gonna do it.
And right, and that's it's funny to say, but that's what I needed to hear. I
Mhm,
needed that, that reassurance that from somebody else, like, "No, you've got this, you can do this." And I think also that's why, um, domestic calls after that, like, those were my calls. Like, those were
mhm.
the ones that I really wanted to work on because of that time. And it just continued from there. There was
Yeah.
that progression, that evolution and everything, but man,
Well, I'm
there
glad to know that I'm not the only trainer that has said, "No, you're gonna do it."
yeah.
There was I mean, I'm taking, like, this girl was training, she was writing everything down, and then she would put it in CAD. I took her pen and paper one day, I was like, "No, ma'am." I was like, "We're not doing this anymore." I said, "You get the CAD is right here. It's not hard. I've showed you how to do it. We've done a bajillion test calls. Like, you're no more pen and paper."
Yeah,
She was like, "Ri what?" I was like, "Come on."
right. Yeah, it's like, "You've got this. You can do
Like,
this."
you don't believe in yourself, but I believe in you, so let's go.
See, that
And now she's training someone.
oh, see that
Yep.
right there. Hell yes, that is amazing. Well done. I shit
Well,
you
thank
not,
you.
I don't know why, but that gave me goosebumps, like, because
I was surprised whenever I heard it too. I was like, "What?" Like, she cried every day. Why is she I thought she hated it.
but that's awesome. That is very cool. So, okay, I'm gonna type something really quick here, because I wanna remember this. Um, so you go through all of this that you were doing, right? And you're getting
Mhm.
close to being on your own now. Do you remember your first call that you took, first 911 call that you took, or not just the first one, but some of the earlier ones that you took as you were going on your own?
Yeah, so my first day on the floor, without my trainer, I was on like, we had different consoles. So I was on the fire console. I answered at 911, and this lady was just, like, screaming, like, and I was like, "Oh, shit. What the hell am I getting myself into?" I was like, "I don't know if I can do this." And, um, trainer looked at me and he was like, "You can do it." I was like, Okay." So she was still screaming, and something about he shot, and I was like, "Oh." And then I was like, "I really can't understand you. Like, I need you to take a deep breath and tell me what's going on." Then her dad got on the phone and he was like, "I I don't really even know how to tell you this." He said, "But my son-in-law just shot himself in the driveway, like, right in front of my daughter and his kids."
Oh man.
I was like, "What?" And I know that was terrible to say, but I was like, "What?" And he was like, I oh, we just need somebody to come out here." I was like, "Okay." It's like, "Well, why are you so calm?" Like, you're more calm than I am. But that one, that was crazy. I was like, "Y'all, that was my first call when somebody's already shot themselves." I was like, "Okay, what
That's
kind of black cloud is hanging over me?"
right. Yeah, that's that's basically the universe, the dispatch god saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
welcome to dispatch."
Yeah.
Because yeah, to start out with that. So my not the first call I took at Central Dispatch. However, the my first night at the Central Dispatch in Southwest Michigan, I remember sitting with my trainer, and I was just listening. It was the first night, and it was a midnight shift. And I remember she thought that I was not going to come back because of what I heard. And I think she it had misplaced the fact that I had already been doing the job for a while. And what it was this guy calling in. He said that he again, this is middle of the night, he thought there was an animal that was crawling on the side of the road. But when he pulled up, it was a guy that was crawling
Oh my
on the side
god.
of the road. And I remember hearing him, like, stumbling over his words, and my trainer's like, "Well, what's going on with him? Why is he crawling?" We already have people headed that way for, like, an unknown
Yeah.
situation, until he mentioned what it was. Well, so I guess this guy, he tried to commit suicide with a shotgun, but he slipped, and when he
Mm.
slipped, he shot his jaw was just kinda hanging. So
Yeah.
he wanted somebody out there, and I remember my trainer looking at me and lipping, "Are you okay?" And I said,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I'm," like,
Why
"Yeah, I'm
why would I
fine."
not be okay? This
Oh,
is
right,
normal.
yeah, but also, I remember thinking in my head, "Holy shit, like, this is not what I expected my one of my first calls to be like." kind of like you in that same sense, like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, I was like, "Y'all, what was that, like a test or something?" And they were like, "No, but you did really good." I was like, "Oh, good, okay," because I don't feel like I did really good.
Oh, man. Yeah, for that to be your first one right out of the
Yes,
gate,
I was like,
holy
"Why couldn't I
moly.
just get, like, a simple, like, I'm falling and I can't get up," you know?
Oh, right, or a butt dial or something,
Yes.
right? Something to just wet the whistle as you're
Yeah,
getting in
you
there.
know?
Not like
My
that.
cat stuck up a tree, you know?
Right.
Not
So, let
just
me let me ask then, after you took that call, even though you had all of those thoughts as well, I mean, it obviously didn't freak you out enough that you left. You've been doing this for 13 years now, you know, did you have that thought where this is this is what I'm getting into, like, this is where I'm meant to be, or was it just a whoa?
yeah. It was kind of like a, "Whoa," but
Yeah.
then I was like, honestly, it's not the first time that I've heard it because 'cause I've heard
Mhm.
it come out over the radio before,
Right,
Dad
yeah.
always kept his radio on, like, so I don't know, it was of course, it's different hearing it over the radio and then actually talking to the person that's actually living in that moment right then,
Right.
but I don't I was not really I mean, I remember it, but I wasn't as affected by it as I feel like I should have been, if that
Mm.
makes any sense at all.
No, no, it does, and I can see you, trying to, just think about that whole thing, like, "How come it didn't do this or that?" Or, "Where am I? Am I dead inside?" You
Yeah,
know?
like,
Or what
heart
is it that
really
is going
black.
on? Yeah, but like you were saying, because you've heard it over the scanner before, that you had heard it over the radio before, and, maybe conversations that you heard, your dad have, or even more so, conversations that you had with him about certain things, it kind
Mhm,
of prepared you in a way for everything that
yeah,
you were going to be doing, and also, you have an experience way more rich than I do because of the fact that your dad was involved in public safety, and you were hearing certain things, experiencing certain things. So, you would probably be able to speak to certain callers in certain situations and be able to assist them in a
mhm,
way that I wouldn't be able to, only because I don't have that same experience. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
So there are times where, and not times, but I'm a firm believer that there are one, experiences that we have in our lives that will assist us with calls later, but also along with that experience that we're just able to help people more.
yeah.
Like, there's some calls that are meant for us is what I'm getting at.
Yes, that's what
Mhm.
I was just about to say. I definitely had that happen too, but that's for yeah, the other question about
Yeah.
the one that sticks with you.
Right, right. So, you have all of these early calls, and before we get to that part, so I have to ask, you mentioned you're a trainer as well. So,
Mhm,
was there something that really pushed you towards that? Because usually a lot of times with folks that I've spoken to who become trainers, it's one of 2 things. Either they had shit
mhm,
training when they were starting out, and they wanted to become a trainer to end up molding that new generation coming in so that they don't have to deal with what you might have dealt with during that time. Or
mhm.
secondly, you had an
You
awesome
were
trainer.
voluntold.
Yeah, or voluntold. Well, I guess there's 3, right? There's 3 then. You're voluntold to do it, or you had an awesome trainer and they inspired you enough that you wanted to continue that, kind of that legacy of, just in general, of good training for those coming in. But man, if you were voluntold, then
Yeah, they're just like, "We're putting this person with you today. Have fun."
you know,
Okay.
but that says a lot about you. That says a lot about you and the way you do the job, your experience, and, your passion for this calling, because, I
Yeah.
mean,
I
I'm
mean, I've
sure.
tried to get out, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
9 to 5 is not my thing, like, 6 to 6 is more my speed.
Oh, damn. Okay, hold on then. Hold on. Pause. 6 to 6. Are we talking 6A to 6P or 6P to 6A?
6P to 6A.
Yes.
Yeah.
I only say that because midnight shift was my jam. Like that's what I
Yes.
loved was midnight shift. There was a small stint where I did one cycle of days, and that was when I was first promoted to supervisor. I was the low person on the pole. Nobody wanted that morning shift for whatever reason. I kind of found out, but I won't say. It was kind of a harder shift. I'll just leave it at that. But it ended up working out good because what I found out was like some of the folks that I worked with, man, they just wanted someone to be able to listen to them. Like,
Mhm.
just listen and provide some sort of guidance, and I don't think that some of those folks got that. So,
Yeah.
what people did not want to, take on, and I did, it ended up being really, really good. But
Yeah.
I also lived 45 minutes away from dispatch,
Ooh,
so I would
that's
have to wake up at 3 in the morning because I worked 4:30 to 4:30. So I'd have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, or 3 in the morning rather, leave by 3:30 to make it to dispatch by a quarter after 4 so that I
oh
could
my
be
god,
briefed. Yes,
that's
and then
crazy.
start my shift at 4:30. That was so bad.
That I don't know if I could do that. That's
Yeah,
dedication right
right. So,
there.
the 6 p to 6 a, I definitely, I'm with you there. Midnight shift
Yeah.
was the best shift, especially because there's shit that happens on midnight shift that would
That
never happen
does
during the
not
day.
happen on days.
Right. Then you throw in a full moon. Ooh.
Oh my god. Yes.
Or
Well,
a f
thank God I'm not working the next one.
Yeah, or full moon and someone says the Q word. Dude, the look on your face, that was perfect. Hell yeah,
I
man.
hate that
Yeah,
word.
right. Those are the nights where you're getting busted to hell and you look up at the clock and it's only been 15 minutes.
Yeah. I'm like, "Oh my god, it should be 3 o'clock, not 12:30
Oh, right. Yes,
or
exactly.
9:30."
Oh, man, yeah. I
Oh,
Those are some crazy times. I definitely miss dispatch, but man, there are some things that I don't miss.
yeah.
County politics and a
Oh,
bunch of other bullshit, like, that stuff I don't miss, but working with my crew, working with those out in the field, man, we were
yeah.
like family, and it was a lot of fun, especially during a lot of those hard calls because we only have each other to lean on.
Mhm.
And with that said, again, if you feel comfortable sharing, what is one of the calls that you've dealt with that kinda sticks with you?
Um, so whenever I was working with the South Carolina Highway Patrol, we, had a just started shift, had a lady call in, and, one of the guys down at the other end of the room answered it. It was a possible drunk driver. So, she was following him. She wasn't, like, in a hurry or anything. I was like, "Okay." I told him, I was like, "Will you just transfer the call down here to my phone?" Because I was dispatching for Lawrence County at the time.
Mhm.
And, I was like, "Just, send her down here so I can talk to her, and it'll be easier for me to keep troopers updated on what's going on." So we were talking. She was telling me where they were at, what they were doing. They wound up stopping. Like the guy just stopped his car in the middle of an overpass. Um, like I-26 runs underneath. He was on the overpass, and she she got out of her car, went up there, like banged on the window, and was like, "What are you doing? Like, what is wrong with you?" She was like, "I've got Highway Patrol on the phone." um, and then she walked back to her car and said, "I don't know what's wrong with him. He was looking at me, but he was looking through me. Like he had that 1,000-yard stare going on." I was like, "Well, this doesn't sound good." Like
Right,
this,
yeah.
I'm really worried. So I asked, where the troopers were, if anybody was close. Of course, nobody was close because it was shift change, you know. Um, Next thing I know, she starts like screaming. She's like, "He's getting out of his car and he's walking to the edge." I was like, "What?" And she said, he's got something around his neck. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, are you safe? Like, are you in your car? Or are you still out? And she was like, no, I'm in my car with my doors locked. And she just started screaming. Like, I can still hear her screams today. And she was like, holy shit, he just jumped over the side of the overpass.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what? This is whenever I was still training. And I looked at my trainee. I was like, I don't care what you're doing right now. I said, get on that phone and call Lawrence County, get EMS and fire and whoever else rolling out there. I was like, this guy just jumped over the bridge. Like he's hanging off the side of the bridge. So they got out there and I kept her on the phone until fire arrived. And I was like, well, let me make sure that that's really them and not just somebody rolling up that might have red lights in their truck thinking, they're the best fireman in the world. And I talked to him and he was like, no, I'm, with Lawrence County Fire. And we're gonna, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. I was like, okay. I was like, well, as long as I know that she's taken care of. That he had apparently tried to, kill himself earlier that day. Didn't work. So he decided that morning that he was gonna do it. From what I remember, they said that he had tied like a rope around the steering wheel and then put it around his neck, got out, and jumped. I called her. That one is like the one that I just can't shake. Like I said, like I still hear her screaming. And even now, like whenever we're watching like the first 48 or something like that, and they tell the family that, they didn't make it and they start screaming, like I have to get up and walk out. It's something that I had never experienced, and I never want to experience that again.
Oh,
It was,
jeez.
yeah, it was intense. I've never like really cried on the floor before, but somebody had to take over my radio and I had to walk out, and because I was just crying, I was like, what the fuck? And I called my dad, of course, because he obviously understands
Right.
what happened and everything. And he was like, there was absolutely nothing that she could have done or you could have done to save him because he already had his mind made up. But, everybody listened, the higher ups listened to the call and they were like, you were given that, like, you knew something was going on or was going to go on. And that call was for you. Like, I don't think anybody else could have handled that. I was like, oh, great. Like, I didn't want to handle it.
Right.
Here we
Yeah.
are.
It's hard to accept, right? Because it's a weird thing for someone to say that was meant for you,
Mm-hmm.
because of your experience, because of whatever it might be. But have you thought about that at all? And that it was meant for you, that maybe that you were able to, even though, obviously it sticks with you, right? Even though
Mm-hmm.
you still hear those screams, that there's a trigger if you're watching a show or something and you have to get up to walk out, that you were able to handle it or take it in better than anybody else that you work with might have. Like, of course, they would have done their job. They would have done things to the best of their ability, but maybe there was
Mm-hmm.
just something extra that you
Yeah,
had as well.
that one turned into more of like a 911 type call, and nobody at that center really had 911 experience. Like Highway Patrol does regs and traffic. They
Mhm.
don't go to domestics. They don't, do things like that. Um, and I really don't know if the guy that took the phone call initially, um, if he could have handled it. So I don't know. I was
Wow.
very thankful for, my 911 side because that kicked in. I was like, well, this isn't just a normal bolo for a drunk driver anymore. This is something completely different now.
Right. I
Um,
think I think one of the best things for you, in a sense, was that you had your dad to be able to talk to. You had
oh
somebody
yeah.
that understands, right? And,
Mhm.
but also, so one of the big things for those who are watching, there's a lot of people from the general public who watch this as well, who listen to the podcast. Closure is a big thing that we deal with in dispatch. And what I mean is a
Yeah.
big thing is that we don't get closure on the
No.
majority of our calls. One of the things that we need, like we need air to breathe. One of the things that we need is to hear what you were told, which was
Mhm.
there was nothing else that you could have done,
Yeah.
because everyone in whatever profession or in daily life, we are our own worst critic. So, and I say that because the last 2 weeks that I was in dispatch, it seemed like the dispatch gods were hitting me with every shit call. It was like we as dispatchers are in a gang and I was getting beat out.
Oh
Is
yeah.
what it that's how it felt. I was getting beat out of this profession with all of these hard calls, and there was one call that I took that impacted me enough that I took 30 minutes as the supervisor with my team to map out a
Mhm.
certain path of where this person was driving who eventually ran their car into a tree, because I needed to know that there was nothing else that I could have done,
Yeah.
because before that I was beating myself up.
Oh yeah.
And I I hate that that outcome was that outcome for you, but I love the fact that you had people that straight up told you there's nothing else you could have
Mhm.
done, so that there was no longer a question in your mind.
Yeah, and a few
Because
of the troopers that went out there, I talked to them, I was like, "Y'all, I can't." Like, even obviously weeks later, I was like, "I can't stop hearing her."
Mhm.
And, a bunch of them was like, "It'll take time, but eventually it'll just get pushed back." But, um, I don't know, just hearing my dad say, "There's nothing more that you could have done." Like, he had his mind made up. And, there's nothing that she could have done either. And, I kinda told her that, and then I had to hear, you
Right,
know,
yeah.
like, I don't know, I was staying strong for her,
Mhm.
and then whenever it was over, that's when I could have, I could breathe and finally be like, "Holy shit, here we go."
Right, and that's the key word right there, right, that you just said, "breathe," because a lot of
Yeah,
times, excuse me, when we're taking these calls and shit is going to hell like that, I
you
don't
don't
think we
breathe.
realize how much we are holding our breath.
Yeah. I've never been able to hold my breath and talk, but there are certain situations I'm like
Right, exactly, and that being one of them right there. Now, I was gonna ask if there was a debriefing at all for this, but it kinda sounds like you basically got that through
Yeah,
everyone that
it
you
was
spoke to.
yeah, I didn't, and this is kinda one of the downfalls, but I didn't really the counseling that I feel like I probably should have got, you
Mhm.
know, it wasn't readily available. Like, I called the chaplain, I was like, "Hey, this just happened, I really need to talk because they offered that service to us. Um, but I never really heard much from them. So my dad and those troopers were pretty much my counsel.
And
So,
that was probably the best choice, especially
yeah.
because they're family, and
Yeah,
family
that
is going
is
to be straight up with you. I would
exactly.
I would rather have someone be up in my face and straight up with me versus someone who's beating around the bush.
Oh, yeah.
So, for example, I remember having an incident where my team and I, there was this incident, and we went in to speak with one of the counselors, but this person didn't come from public safety. Now, in that person's defense, I'm sure that they are amazing at what they do. However, when my team and I tell you what happened, and the first
Yeah.
response is, "How does that make you feel?"
Mm,
Then I don't want
yeah.
we we all
How does that
immediately
make you
were like,
feel? Well,
"Yeah,
how does that make you feel?
yeah, yeah."
Let's reverse that.
Right, because I remember that person's face just kind of like their eyes opening up, and I thought, this person doesn't come from public safety."
This isn't
And
gonna work.
yeah, we ended up ending the conversation right there. Like we were
Yeah.
done. We're like, "We're sorry. I don't think this is gonna work." And the person even agreed too and said, "You might wanna speak to someone who comes from where you come from,
Yeah.
and, they will understand you more." So, um, I kind of feel like the way it happened for you was probably the best pathway for you.
Yeah. And then, the supervisor for the center at the time, I went in and asked him, I was like, I know you heard it. And he was like, yeah, I listened to it. I was like, sorry if I cussed at my trainee to tell her to get everybody on the way. And he was like, listen, it is fine. Like you were stressed.
Mhm.
Like that's just how you responded to that. I was like, yeah, but I probably shouldn't have said what I said. Whoops. And he was like, trust me, it's okay. And like the captain and everything, everybody heard it too. And, nobody said anything was wrong with it or anything like that. And I did actually get to call her, the caller.
Mhm.
Um, I called her maybe a week afterwards just to see, how she was doing and, if she was getting help that she needed. Um, and just like hearing her voice again, it just like brought back everything. But I was like, you sound like a completely different person today.
Hmm.
Like she was like, I've literally been going to my psychiatrist every day because I can't get that image out of my head. And I was like, well, I can't get your screams out of my head. So,
Did you feel better though at all after
yeah.
after talking to her?
Yeah, after I talked to her and, she told me that she was actually getting help and everything, she wasn't just sitting in a dark corner somewhere. She was like, I have my life to live even though, this happened. So,
Wow. That's something that is rare as well, that you
mhm.
end up getting to, one, either meet the person, right? Or simply talk to them like you did,
Yeah.
talk to them on the phone, and that has to give some reassurance and everything as well to help you through all of that and make you feel better as
Mhm.
well. I'm glad that you had, one, the support system and the ability to call that caller back and have that that connection, because that's a form of closure as well. You
Yeah.
now get to know that she is also getting help, and that's not sticking in your head thinking, "I
Yeah.
wonder how this person is. Are they dealing with the same thing that I'm dealing with?" And so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
I still
that's
think
a
about
win.
her. Yeah, I still think about her. Like last night, we were on shift. I was like, y'all, I kind of wish that I could call her again, just to check on her.
Mhm.
I don't remember her name. Obviously, I don't remember her phone number, but, you know, I was like, "Man, I wish I could, like, just run into her somewhere because I know I would know her voice," and which is kinda creepy to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the other way too, someone, knowing your voice, and, it goes both ways, but hey, you never know.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
something like that could happen. You could be at the gas station out of nowhere and just, see the person, or hear their voice rather,
Yeah.
and have that connection. I've spoken to people who have had that happen before, or like years from now, or years from the incident, they ended up meeting that person up again, or
Mhm.
hearing their voice, or on a phone call, or whichever. And you get that reconnection and stuff. But
Yeah.
wow, that and that's an experience too with you being a trainer, that those who end up being under you for that time that you're training them, you have all of this experience where if they ever go through something similar, or they
Mhm.
just want to know certain things, you're able to speak on that because
Yeah.
you've dealt with it.
Yeah.
And you've been able to work through things and all, and that's a good thing as well.
Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely say that. Definitely helped her too, because she got to see how bad it could be,
Right. Yeah.
you know? So, I as bad as it sounds, I'm glad that she was exposed to that
Mhm.
so that she would really know. That was like her make it or break it point, you know? Can you handle it or should you probably go somewhere else? But like I
Right.
said, she's still there training somebody now. So,
That's amazing. Yes. That is definitely a make it or break it moment. You know, you have trainees that end up hearing certain things and you're like kind of the same way with me when
yeah.
the way I told you, that first call that I heard and the trainer's looking at me thinking I'm gonna leave, but,
Thinking you're
it
just gonna
was
put them on hold and take your headset off and walk out,
right.
never come back. I'm going to lunch
Yeah,
or
and
whatever.
some people have done that. Some
Yeah,
people
oh,
have
yeah.
taken a call or whichever and have been like, "I'm gonna go step outside for a smoke break," or, "I'm gonna go get lunch," or whatever, and then gone. You
Never
know,
come back.
they yeah, they never come back, but also, I feel like I would rather have something like that happen. Yeah, it's a loss of resources, a loss of money, all of that stuff, but I would rather have something like that happen than a freeze,
Oh,
on a
yeah.
call and then something really bad happen. I I would definitely rather have them have that realization right off the bat in the beginning than later on.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
man, it has been amazing to talk to you and to hear about your story and, just your whole history, man, like, all of it, from being a little baby and a scanner next to you and your first words being 10-4. I'm just playing. Those who are watching, those were not her first words.
No.
I'm just joking. I'm joking completely, but just all of this experience and the way that you talk about this profession and everything, I can feel it through your words and your expressions that very early on, something that you experienced, but also something that, like you said, within 10 minutes you're like, this is for me.
Yep.
Like this is your passion, your calling, you're training other people, and the one, and maybe there's others, but this, one that you've spoken of, is also a trainer too. So you're obviously doing an amazing job. So
I
keep it
try.
up. Yes, keep it up. That is awesome. So going into the wrap up of this episode, for anyone who's looking at getting into this profession, or even, those who have dealt with hard calls, as we've talked about your experience and stuff, what is some advice that you have for them?
Um, I mean, I would just say not to be afraid to communicate.
Hmm.
If something is going on, you know, people need to know. If, like with how you said, people are kind of snobbish sometimes. They don't really want to welcome the newbie into the group, but there's a difference between, being kind of snubbed out or like going through hell,
Right.
you know? So, I mean, you can't do it alone. You have to speak up and let somebody know.
Exactly, and I think a lot of times too, when you get kind of that, I'll put it this way, that crustiness in there, I think a lot of times it's because those folks forget what it was like in the beginning for them,
Yeah, they've
and
been
it's
doing it so long, they're like just numb to it now.
right, yeah, and I think that's why, again, conversations like this are so important. Conversations within the center are so important because
Mhm.
once you start talking and reflecting, there's a lot of times that I've spoken to people who end up saying, "You know what? That's the way I was when I first started. I completely blocked that out." And like,
Yeah,
yeah, let's think about that. You know,
yeah,
let's go back and think about what that was like. So, actually, one last question.
okay.
Um, if you could go back in time with the knowledge that you have now to talk to yourself in the beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Mm, that it's okay not to be okay. Like, you're not gonna walk in the sunshine and rainbows every day. Days are gonna be hard, but, I mean, you can't give up. The public is depending on you just as much as they depend on the people out in the field. You are their calm voice before anything.
Perfect. Very nice. Thank you again,
You
Brooke,
are
for being
welcome.
on. And this has been a lot of fun. I hope you had fun too. This was
Yes.
really, really
Out of
good.
my comfort zone for sure. And I'm really glad I did it.
Awesome. I am glad you did too. This has been an excellent, excellent time. And I'll be right back here with you in just one moment. For those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments or questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/within the trenches podcast. This episode has been sponsored by In Digital, a leader next gen core services. And if you want to become a subscriber of the podcast for bonus material, discounts to the store, swag, all kinds of other stuff, you can become a patron of the podcast. That's patreon.com/WTT podcast, or you can go for the light version, but still powerful and a lot of good bonus content, along with singing badly in my car that I've got a whole list of shit that's coming up. So make sure to check that out. That is facebook.com/within the trenches podcast/support. This can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. But if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you can also check me out. It is links.co. That is links with 2 links.co/WTT podcast. That takes you to my bio page, and everything is there all in one tidy little spot for all of you. So check it out, and I'll see you in the next one.